Welcome back to another episode of 1025. One of my daughters absolutely loves rocks. I don't know, maybe she gets that from one of my brothers who is a geologist. So a couple of years ago, she got a rock tumbler as a present at Christmas. And I don't know if you've ever seen a rock tumbler before, but essentially you take a number of rocks which are rough around the edges, and you open up the container, you stick it in, you pour in this little packet of grit, you mix in some water, and then you set it on its cycle for a number of days. And it tumbles around and it makes this really, really annoying noise. But at the end of that cycle, you can open it up, and those rocks which were rough, all of a sudden now they're smooth and they're shiny. And this makes me think about our relationships as Christians. See, I believe that this is the way that God forms us. This is the way that God shapes us. This is the way that the biblical word for this is He sanctifies us. He makes us holy. He makes us more like Jesus. It's through rock tumbler relationships. He takes us as sinful, flawed human beings that we are, and He puts us in relationship with each other. He puts us in close proximity to each other. And He invites us to mix in some of His grace and His love and His forgiveness, and to let that flow over us. And over a long period of time, we can actually open it up and pull it out, and we can see that we're actually smoother, that we're less rough around the edges. And if there's one relationship where God has intended this sanctifying process to happen, it's through marriage. Now, I know right now in the midst of COVID concerns, someone said to me early on, "Pastor, please pray for marriages." And I said, "Explain more. What do you mean by that?" And he said, "We're just constantly around each other now. We have nowhere to go. We can't go out anywhere. If we're working, many of us are working from home. And so you're just constantly rubbing up against each other. And that can wear on a relationship. But I believe that God has put us in close proximity to each other within marriage so that we can see each other's selfishness and flaws, and yet that God's grace can be at work through that we can show unconditional love to each other, that we can sprinkle in some of that grace, some of that love, some of that forgiveness, and it can wash over us day after day after day. And even in the midst of some of the annoying noise, even through those moments of conflict, that we're able to show Christ to each other. I want to read for you what Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5 as he talks about marriage. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave Himself up for her." For what purpose? To make her holy, to sanctify her, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, to present her to Himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, to present her as that smooth and shiny rock. It says in the same way, wives, respect your husbands. Men, it's our responsibility to bring out the beauty in our wives. And women, support your husband in such a way that you're able to see the strength that he brings to that relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not going to be moments of conflict. In fact, it's going to happen almost constantly on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter if you're married or not. Anytime you're put in close proximity to somebody else in a relationship, it's going to be a little bit rocky at times. And yet, here's my prayer for you. That you would, in those moments where you see your own selfishness or the selfishness of somebody else coming out, that you would ask for God's grace and God's forgiveness to wash over you, to wash over each other, so that in the end, we can be that smooth rock. That we can have not a rocky relationship, but a rock solid relationship where people can look at us and see the reflection of Jesus. That's a rock tumbler relationship. That's what I'm praying for you today. And I'll see you again next time.